thank you so much for being here early and on time. I know you're all very busy, important, wonderful women, and thank you very much for honoring our invitation. We sent it out on very short notice. Thank you very much. Dr. Aisha, Pastor Esther, thank you. Ganiyat, Sani is with us. Okay. So I was going to read your bios out just so we know each other a bit. But since I wasn't supposed to do this, I'm just going to go through it real fast. And again, I do hope you forgive this. So Pastor Esther is with us. Pastor Esther has been championing peace building in northern Nigeria for so long. I was a little starstruck when we sent her the invitation and she accepted. Thank you so much, Ma. She's been working there. She's been more interested with women empowerment, women liberation, and making sure women are also seen at the forefront of peace building. Thank you for all that you do, Ma.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. And we have Ms. Aisha Zannah. Well, Ms. Aisha was communications officer with the UN Women. She's a powerhouse. She's done so much work. She's won awards in her field, and we're so happy that you're here with us. Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Ganiyat Sani is the curator for the Kaduna Fashion and Arts Festival. It's been running for the last 5 years, and she's done amazing work. I've been privileged to work with her as well as an assistant curator for 2024. And she's such a wonderful woman. The work that she does with the youth in Kaduna State and across the country, really, and even outside. In 2024, we had artists from Mali, from Senegal. So she's wonderful. And thank you so much for coming, Ganiyat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Pastor Gotname is how do I explain this woman? She's done so much work with NGOs in conflict-related areas in northern Nigeria. I've been a long-time follower of her work, and the work that she also does with her husband, helping vulnerable children. And also our work in therapy as well. I've always thought it's very funny how she's in every how she balances everything that she does, whether it's in the past. I work with in the field of therapy and trauma, and also the work that she does with children. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So where do I start? Because I have this woman. I think that I stayed up late into the night. I was going through, okay, what will I ask these women, and bringing you all into one room and knowing all that you do and the scale at which you do them. It's just it's been a little it's been a challenge for me, and I'm so glad that I've been pushed into the stage apparently, so I have to do this now. I think the first question that I was going to ask was really because knowing all that you do and the works and the reach and how they're centered to, particularly in northern Nigeria, I've wanted especially in terms of whether it's especially there's conflict, violence against women, there's uncertainty among the youth, there's fear. I've always wondered, I wanted to ask, how do you feel when you come into the picture to inspire some sort of change? How has this feeling been for you? Has it been overwhelming? How do you manage it? I think I just want to hear, per se, being in the center of these issues, how it's been for you. I think we can start with Miss Aisha, since she's the top on our.
So, good morning, everyone. When I look at women, I think when we talk about women, like meeting women in conflict situations, the first thing that I always think about is the quiet strength that women show, because when we talk about conflict, they are okay. Yes, where they're not just simply living through violence. They're living through disruption in itself, because it's not always about guns and battles. The people mostly affected are women and children, and conflict affects the rhythm of daily living. So how children are fed, how can everybody hear me? Sorry, the screen changed a bit.
Yes, I can.
So when I meet women like that, sometimes it can be very overwhelming, especially meeting vulnerable women. So when I meet women in conflict, I always think of the quiet strength they demonstrate. They're always ones trying to push themselves out of the situations they're in. So it's very important for me, who is meeting them, who is trying to help the situation not to be overwhelmed. So I like not to, like, my energy when I come to meeting this woman is not to be overwhelmed. It's more creating a safe space for them and letting them, talk about their grievances and how I can help. So sometimes, a lot of the times, what I've taught myself is, over the years, there are moments where I've been, but what I've taught myself is the fact that I cannot allow my own, like, feelings overshadow theirs, because at that moment they are my biggest priority, and they are actually what helps the social structures in conflict. So if women are most affected, we have to be strong for this woman. So even if we're meeting them, we have to make sure that we have the right energy, the right expression to make them feel safe, and even know that we're here to help, not here to blame them or to make them feel less of what they are.
Thank you so much for that. The work that we do here at Engaging Borders, and it's related to youth, you find yourself sometimes trying to, okay, how do I handle this without making it about us, without making it about our intervention? So thank you so much for sharing that. We'll go next for us, maybe Ganiyat, Sani.
Okay, thank you so much, Star. For me, I've not directly engaged with women in conflict areas directly, but I work in art, and I try my best to see how can we use art to at least inspire that kind of empathy in our community. And a lot of times you find that a lot of artists are not really speaking up as much as they should through their works, because in the past you find a lot of artists in Nigeria that really use their works to talk about the issues going on in the country, political, whether it's going to get them in, trouble or not. But these days it seems like, even the kind of arts that we produce in Nigeria is a little bit quiet. I mean, more quiet than usual. Yes. You don't see it be challenging the current narratives. Not a lot of it. A lot of artists are really personal with their work, and that doesn't necessarily, address or protest the kind of injustice that we're facing in the country. So, hopefully we push for that through our work as curators, as conveners, in art, and of course the support of women, especially women, to be able to tell stories and also advocate for other women, in these situations, for us as a community, as a public, to feel that, because I feel we are beginning to be desensitized on what is really going on in our country, especially with the women. Everybody just wakes up and feels like it's another day, another number, without even knowing their names or their faces. And hopefully, we we use, creativity and, culture to spark for that change that we want to see in our community, because it takes the whole community to speak up and actually challenge these systems that we are facing. But it seems like there's just not enough voices out there, really doing this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I agree completely with you, because I think I was thinking the other day that there was a time, even in Nigerian literature and journalism, where it was people spoke out more. We had more journalists who were being sent to prison. We had writers who were being sent to prison. We had artists who were doing, really important work trying to advocate with art. But you're quite right that there's been that sort of, I think, among Nigerians, with every day there's something new happening. There's some numbers, there's another village being born, there's people being displaced. It has become a bit normal for us, I guess, and that's really an issue. And I think that's also, it makes me think how particularly in conversation with the International Women's Day, it makes me wonder how women are going through all of this, because how are they dealing with their children? How are they dealing with their own mental health? How are they going through life, consistently with this fear, especially in a time when people are being so quiet and, like you said, desensitized to the issue. I think that will also take us to Pastor Gotname, and we're going to ask her, especially with our work in trauma therapy, how has your experience been like working with women in conflict related zones?
Not easy. I try not to get overwhelmed, but so many times I tend to cry with them. We have found that it really hastens the healing process when you are able to try to wear their shoes, and not to make it about yourself, but then to say that I just don't sympathize or empathize. I have come to a place where I'm very compassionate and I'm trying to understand where you're at, because I'm not just a woman, I'm also a mother. So I understand when you are displaced, what it means to lose your homes, what it means to lose your sleep, to lose your peace, to have memories of hurt and violence that you had to witness. It's not always easy to encounter such women. Sometimes you don't really have the right words, and sometimes you would have to rely on the spiritual aspect of praying with them. But it saddens me to know that in Nigeria, because that's where we are, that we have a generation of traumatized children and women. And it seems that not everybody is trying to do something to help them or sees that as a problem. I'm sorry if I sound judgmental, but when you are faced with every day trying to counsel women and children, tendency is to feel that, am I in this alone? But then you are happy when people are able to voice out and say, see, we're trying to help out some people here in Bauchi, Kano. You are not the only one feeling the way. Let me give you an example. The amount of widows that we have due to the conflict of terrorism in Nigeria or banditry is alarming. You meet widows as young as 19, widows as young below that age. It's sad. With so many children, some are dead. You meet, I know we're talking about children and women, you meet very broken men that are so traumatized, and from the look of things, they are unable to become the kind of men we would want them to be. We have that problem. We've been trying to see how we can empower our men to be there for our women, but because of all these things that isn't working. And then these women are left without even the men, because of the women because the women we have in northern Nigeria, majority of them, and without school or a livelihood, they have always been dependent on their husbands, and that has been taken away. That's another aspect. So it is not good. We have a people that have been raped and they're just left to cater for themselves. Women that just, I think, let me pause here. I'm sure we have a lot to talk about. Let me not just bombard you with so much that I feel. Thank you so much.
Okay, so mommy, you have a screen.
Okay, thank you so much. Can everybody see me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Forgive me if my eyes are a bit puffy. It's 4 o'clock here. So I was saying that there's no way you talk about women in conflict situations that it doesn't really break your heart. And when we started this work about 15, 18 years ago, we didn't think we'll still be talking about women in conflict situations in 2026. And to describe how I feel, I think it was just yesterday, I was talking with my daughter. We're having a conversation about what's going on in Nigeria. And I said to her, I said, you know what, I have stopped opening videos on social media about, conflict situations or a terrorist attack or kidnappers or banditry. I said, because I'm getting to a point where if I don't protect my heart, I can just maybe die from heartbreak or increase my blood pressure. The other thing I would feel is let it, like somebody mentioned earlier, let it not just become normalized, let it not just be another number, let it not be data, statistics, so you become numb to the reality and the depth of pain that's going on. So that's the way I feel right now. It's really heartbreaking that we're still having this kind of conversation almost 15 years after we started. And when we talk about how are women handling it, I look at the women from two angles. Number one, women that are victims of conflict. So you have women that have been internally displaced or are suffering from trauma or some even physical ailment as a result of conflict. So you talk about those kinds of women. And you also talk about women that are involved in peace building and conflict resolution. So the women that are victims, throughout last year, we spent the whole of last year visiting IDP camps in Benue State. And I remember seeing a woman in the camp that looked old enough to be my mother. So she must have been in her 80s or 90s. I mean, she just had the picture of abject hopelessness and just sadness and just trauma and everything. And I looked at her and I began to cry. And I just said, no human being should spend the rest of their lives in that manner. And for me, it was just a reflection of what Nigeria had degenerated to. So there are women in camps that have gotten used, to that way of life, have given up hope, and don't think that the situation will ever change in Nigeria. Then on the other hand, the women that are involved in peace building, I think are getting tired. I don't hear, like Zainab said earlier, we don't hear of such women. We don't hear their voices anymore. So women have gotten tired, because if you work for so long, you're encouraged to keep on working by the positive results you see. But if you work for so long and you don't see these results, rather the situation gets worse. It can be very discouraging. It can be very overwhelming. So you find women who don't want to work in peace building and conflict resolution anymore. Or you find those who are still there, but it's a mechanical chore for them. They just, the feelings are no more there. The empathy is no more there. They have become hardened, and the situation has been normalized. So those are the two different perspectives that I see happening now. And it is really, really sad. And I am really hoping that that women all over Nigeria would really look. The real work is before the International Women's Day. It's before this day, and then after this day. It shouldn't just be this day that we're coming together to talk about things that affect us, affect our families, affect the future of our nation. So I think that we need to do more. We need to do more. And I think women working in peace building and conflict resolution, they themselves are traumatized. And we have not really looked at that angle. But I think that we need to start looking on how to reach out to them and how to minister to them as well, honestly. So those are my two thoughts.
But mommy, I agree with what you said because honestly, like I've been working with women in conflict for a while now. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
And there was a time that I became so sad. I had to stay away from people because of the work that I was doing. I
Yeah.
started analyzing their pain and it started affecting me, like even affecting my life. So I had to take a step back and then so I do agree with what you say. There's like a kind of fatigue that comes with just
Exactly.
so much sad stories, like so much negativity.
Yeah.
It's just too heavy.
It's just heartbreaking. There's just
Yeah,
so much that you can take. And that's why I even feel that, workers in that field, they themselves need some trauma healing
they do. They do,
because of the
honestly.
things you are exposed to. But, we don't even think about that at all. We don't think that they need help. I know many that need, I mean, their mental health was affected,
Counseling, yeah.
you know.
And there's a lot of stigma when it comes to counseling in our own society, in our own communities too. So when you tell people, oh, you should like, go check your mental health and everything, the next thing you would hear is somebody who would say that, oh my God, I think there's something wrong with that. They're going mental. So that's the way
Exactly.
our communities are. So even the people who are actually going through trauma don't like to ask for help, they feel like, I
Yeah.
don't know, they feel like they've lost everything and people would see them as mad. This fear controls people, like both the ones helping and the ones in the situation too.
Praying, that we will see some light at the end of the tunnel because this tunnel has been too long and too dark.
Honestly.
That brings me to the question I wanted to ask Pastor Esther, and it's about the religious aspect of things. And I think this question actually goes across board. When we talk about mental health, a lot of times the church, the mosques, we don't sort of understand or support the notion that this is a psychological issue and that people actually need professional help. And I know prayers are important and prayers have the role that they play, but what about the role that is more tethered towards health? Like this is a health issue as well. It's beyond what's happening physically. It's beyond spiritual are people, do we just encourage them to pray, or do we encourage them to seek professional help? But a lot of times, especially in with everyday people, that's not usually the case. There's always a new prayer point. There's always something else that you have to do. And I think that I'm very curious about your thoughts on this issue.
That is so true. And it comes from our cultural background and affiliations. And I truly think that, both religious bodies need to be educated along those lines. A couple of years ago, I was invited to Abuja by this, what's the name of the organization? I've forgotten. But all they did was to invite religious leaders. I mean, that was one of the best conferences I'd ever attended in my life. They invited religious leaders, and then they invited clinical psychologists as well. And the theme of that conference was how you can inculcate mental health and mental well-being in spirituality. And it really, really opened my eyes. It was so educative because the two actually complement each other. Like, for example, in Christianity, there's the story of a man that was, quote, mad. He was mental and was bound with chains and all of that. And when he met Jesus, Jesus, the Bible says, cast out the demon out of him and he became well. So that was a typical example of mental health that is addressed spiritually. Now, it's not every, mental health challenge that is spiritual, but where it is spiritual, I think spiritual tools should be applied to address them. And it was so good that I recommended that, that organization, addresses the whole body, whether PFN or CAN or even Jamaatul Nasrul Islam, just the religious hierarchy, the bodies, they need to be educated along those things because they are the first point of call with people that are going through mental health. And we need to we ourselves as ministers of God need to understand that when somebody is challenged in that area, it doesn't mean he's mad. And the stigma has to be taken away from it because this is somebody that's just, crying out for help. And if you don't understand it, how can you render that help? And then we also we need to know where to draw the line, that it's not every mental health challenge that is spiritual. And when it is not spiritual, the pastor or the imam should know how to refer such a one to a clinical psychologist that can address it, medically and professionally. So that meeting was just really fantastic, and I wish it will go through every spiritual leader, especially in the north. They don't seem to have these kinds of challenge in the south, but in the north, I think from both sides of the faith, there's a stigma and there's a lack of understanding of the need for mental health.
You're very right, Pastor. You're very right. And I think that this especially affects young people because when we talk about conflict, young people are usually at the heart of it. Oh, this is... She can't hear me. Please, can anyone else hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Pastor, I'm not sure what the problem is.
Everybody else but her.
Wow. Wow. I don't know what maybe it will pick up. So we'll just continue and see if it works. Okay.
Anyway, so
I was saying the young people are at the heart of these things and they face a lot of issues. I was traveling the other day and I thought if more young people in the country could travel and could see other parts of the country, engage with new people. I think this is also part of this is a sort of mental exercise that's also good. But when we have issues of insecurity and people feel cooped up where they are, and then the media is full of bad news, there's death, there's blood, there's all of these things, and young people can't, and in the same breath cannot feel safe enough to express themselves and express their views, then we have an issue that keeps growing, and that's a big problem. I think that I'm going to talk direct this question to Ganiyat Sani, especially with our work with culture and arts and young people. Do you think in your work so far that you've been able to sort of measure the ways in which art is giving young people space to express themselves and to share some of these burdens in their hearts?
Well, I can say we try to, because for each edition of the Kaduna Fashion and Arts Exhibition, we try to give themes. So the themes are what guides the artist to create something, to create something that resonates with what we're trying to talk about in that year. And, at times, many a times you find that the artists are not so like bold and expressive with you feel like they should be able to talk about powerful opinions or things that they have in mind, but there's just a kind of unspoken censorship, I guess, that we have in the north, or maybe I wouldn't say the north, but of course all over the country we've seen situations where people have said some things, or even try to protest or something, and then you get maybe taken away or something like that. So I feel with our work, we're trying to push artists more to feel like they can actually talk about these issues in a safe place, in an environment where everybody can actually, they feel protected and they can actually speak their minds at the end of the day. And it's really sad, like you said, like before, people would be more outspoken about these challenges that we're facing, but now everyone is scared of going to jail or like being taken away.
Yes.
We found some people going missing and nobody knows where they are, things like that. But it's the same with art, because if this kind of art gets to see the daylight, where it would actually offend some people, or some people feel like they are not happy with what is done, then it's going to lead to this kind of thing. So we find that a lot of artists don't really want to go down that route blatantly, So that's just what is happening, and we hope that through our work, because this year's edition of KAFART, where the theme is to have and to hold, where we're trying to evoke empathy and to see how can we hold each other, what kind of things do we choose to hold about our culture, our histories, what kind of communal practices did we used to do before that we don't do anymore, to keep your neighbor safe, to do things like that, all these practices that we no longer do anymore, and how divided we have become as a people, because it's easier for divided people to be in these sort of situations. So if we are more united, if we remember our past and see historically what were the things that kept us going, I guess might be able to inspire a lasting change. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that art cannot be overemphasized in regulating people, right? And peace is about that regulation. It's not the absence of conflict, as it were, or the absence of these issues, but that it's regulated and that it does not overwhelm or consume what is really there. So I think that what you do is so important, and thank you for continuing that work. And when you talk about custodians of community and going back to certain traditions that we used to uphold, like checking after your neighbors. I think the other day we were having this conversation at a newsroom, and it was that parenting has changed so much, and it's just going to give some context to what I'm about to say. But we're talking about how parenting has changed so much. That back then you could have your neighbors watch your child. If you could travel and leave your children with your neighbors, they could eat at your neighbor's house. But so much has changed these days, and it's become like there's a lot of individualism, and people are sort of, if I carve this little place for myself and I'm safe, then that's enough. But we're not talking about the community, because the people in your community also directly affect that space. And if there's a sort of disruption in around you, then there's no way that little space that you've created is going to stand. So, Ms. Aisha, please, I'm going to direct this one to you.
Wait, hold
and I
on,
want you to.
Sorry, I have one question. Like, I wanted to know, so I've always been curious about how women, like, that are directly, encountering other women in conflict areas, how do they take care of themselves? Like, how do they pour back into themselves? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to be, like Aisha said, you have to be strong for them. So how do you go back and take care of yourself and hold yourself and make sure that you're in the right frame, to be able to actually provide support for others? So I'm just throwing this out there.
Thank you for doing that.
Maybe I can answer when Star finishes answering her question. Oh, let me go ahead. She's muted. So I've been working in the humanitarian field since I was 8. So I've been working with women in conflict since I was very young. And I have grown with working with this woman. And I'll tell you, very early in life, it traumatized me. And then I had to learn to separate who I am from their trauma and who they are from their trauma too. So when you work with women, different women with diverse backgrounds, with unbearable experiences and very, very harsh experiences, it's very important to remember your own goal for, working with them. It's like, I'm here to help them. I am here to help them. I cannot do everything. I am here to ease it for themselves. I think we have to make ourselves believe that, because there was a time I met a very young girl who is, I think, 14, and she's a mother, she's a widow. And I'm telling you, she was taken to Sambisa and brought back as a mother who didn't want her child because her child is her abuser's child. And she came back, she was facing stigma from people. And the more she told you her story, I think that was one of the moments that I came home and I gave up. I literally told my mother that I'm never going back. I feel like I cannot do this anymore. I was so sad that my grandmother once told me something. She was like, not everybody has the opportunity to help people. So when you do, make sure that you don't make it about yourself. No matter how much pain you're feeling, they feel more. And they need people who would ease it for them, who would listen to them, because even listening is an important skill, because when people are able to talk about their feelings and tell you about their experiences, it doesn't take away, but it gives them a kind of acceptance that, yes, this has happened to me, but it doesn't, it isn't my whole life story. I can change. So getting people who will listen to you and who can help guide you and tell you, it's not your fault, this happened, and you have a bright future ahead of you. So it really helps. For people who do the work, honestly, what I would say is you have to be very careful in not accepting their energy. It's about creating an energy that works for both of you. But it's very important not to the energy you portray should not be too sad, because it would actually just make them feel worse. So you have to create a common ground with your empathy. You have to come to an agreement with who you are, that I'm trying to help them. I'm not trying to do this. I'm not trying to change anything about them. So, and then also not to change anything about yourself too. So you have to always be able to differentiate the pain and your goals for why you're there. I hope it answers your question, I think, from my own perspective.
Right. Another definition of what compassion is that I agree with what my sister said. Another definition of it is knowing that you are doing the very best you can. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you know that you are doing the very best you can, and then every other person will play their part, and there's also a place for the creator. Like for me, what helps me when I get overwhelmed, because no matter how you try to protect yourself, it happens. We're humans. Sometimes you just get absorbed by every other negativity. And what helps me is art. The ability to be a poet, because I'm a poet, I'm a writer. So yes, so I come back to that. Songs, I have particular songs that of healing. I write. I throw myself into the artistic world, and it helps me. From the spiritual level, I study the book, the spiritual book Bible. I read it. Sometimes I just listen to it through the audio Bible. That is the Psalms. It has a way of soothing me, and I keep telling myself that I didn't bring them to this world. I am not also the devil that is causing this commotion and bringing this hardship and unbearable experiences that they have. And my part is to be there. My part is to listen. My part is to help them feel some kind of ease. So there was a time a relative of mine was in a kind of situation, and we tried all we could. We tried the spiritual means like fasting, praying, all of that, trying to see how she could come out of her trauma and what have you. But at one point, I had to teach myself that this is beyond spiritual. This is something that I couldn't handle myself, and so we had to go back to the hospital, to the psych ward, to meet the psychologist there. And it was right there that I learned what trauma really is, because I met different kinds of victims in the psych ward, and it just changed me. So after that process, we have something to do with, and that's stigmatization. We're still trying to help her overcome that. She's doing very well now, but guess what? The world hasn't forgotten. They haven't forgotten. They call it madness. They call it, and sometimes I think that's the worst for her. Like, why would they say I ran mad? I didn't. I was super sad. I was just super sad, and I keep reminding her, "You are well now. Go be who God created you to be," and that is the most important thing. So art does it for me, because to be an artist is to be like God, and that's powerful. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys already. I don't know if Pastor Esther, mommy, would like to add something, but it's really interesting and fascinating to know how you hold yourself, and like, because not many people are strong. Some people, this kind of experiences actually break them, and yeah.
Okay, let me just add a little bit. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, mommy.
Okay, so a lot, like what my sister just shared, my daughter just shared, is similar. Number one, how you deal with that is spiritually. You turn to your maker.
The star has some God. She's feeling frustrated.
But is it managed well? But
there are times that you come back from the field, and sometimes you just go on your knees and start bowing before the Lord. You just cry your heart out, and God knows what is in your heart, and He knows how to minister strength back to you. But another way that I have found in dealing with all that energy and emotions I'm feeling is I engage the policymakers and I direct all that pent up anger at them. So I meet members of the House of Assembly, or I go to the government house. There's an office in charge of NGO coordination and things like that. There's another one that's in charge of peace building, conflict resolution. So, you try to engage such people and see how they can legislate differently and see how our policies can be affected, or can be reappraised in such a way that they are addressing those issues, because we need to let them know that in a very large part, the politicians are responsible for the situations we have found ourselves in as a nation. So all that pent up anger and frustration, should we should actually load it on them, so that maybe for some of them, maybe their conscience will start pricking them and they will do something about the situation. So these are the two ways that I'm able to manage myself. I redirect my energy towards where I think I may get some answers and some help, in terms of policy and legislation. And then the other is to go back to your maker. He only can strengthen and heal you. So those are the two ways that has worked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
You
so
know,
much.
I don't know if you guys see like on TV, a lot of adverts by maybe national orientation agency, and you wonder like why don't they really talk about all the stigma, like the really, really deep issues, and say, oh, people should stop stigmatizing because they have the power, they have the reach. So why don't they invest in things like that, especially when we're even going through conflicts in the country and stigma in terms of trauma and going out to seek help if you have mental health, issues. But we don't have that, unfortunately, and it's quite sad. I don't know whether they're doing something about it, but they are in the best position to really talk about that. And what my sister said about art, I forgot to actually mention that, which is criminal of me to talk about, to not to mention art as, a healing tool, to really allow you to create that outlet for you to release what you have pent up inside you. And that's the power of art. And we see this, there's this arts health initiative that I've been seeing, or I've not been a part of it directly, but I've been seeing it, all over, where I think artists like Mariam Megida, I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she's an Abuja-based artist. She took part in one program where she went to a community. Yeah. Yeah, she went to a community and she did like an art workshop for some women. I'm not really sure if the women were in a conflict area, but they were women in general, older women, and she taught them, how to create something, to release that whatever, art as an outlet for health. It makes you feel better. And there's this, I don't know if you guys know of Polly Alakija. She's an artist. She has this initiative called 5 Calories, and I really I love the initiative so much. It's something that I've seen from far. I was always hoping that she would spread it across, especially conflict areas, because women really need that initiative, because she actually trains. It's like an arts education program where children and women, in the community take part in an art workshop, and they're creating, items, they are creating images, sculptures, things like that. But it's a lovely initiative that is meant to also empower them with skills, and also improve their well-being. So these are the initiatives that we hope we can get more of in the north, especially, and because where this part of the country has the most affected areas. So so I don't know where Star is.
So
Janice is here.
Janice. Okay, sorry. Janice.
It's fine. So if you can hear me, so I'll pick up from where Esther left. Thank you so much all for, sharing your lovely experiences. It's so good, to hear from you. So from all of our discussions, you have succeeded in, illuminating resilience, leadership of women, especially even in conflict terrains across the countries. We have explored critical gaps, in justice for women around, conflict terrains. We've also talked about, trauma's toll, especially even on women and girls, actionable parts, and especially, towards aligning with the International Women's Theme this year, which is rights, justice, action for all women and girls. So for me, I think the takeaways from all that we've discussed here going forward is to amplify, survival voices, in policy, and also find ways to scale up trauma support and empower women, especially in conflict terrains, and as well networks, of women for lasting change. So as we, leave the space, and go back to our respective jobs, this is a call to action for us. And, the message, should go out there, is to keep advocating for women's rights, justice, and, action in all spheres of life. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate each and every one of you. And sorry, the network glitches. We hope, to find ways to do it better next year. Thank you so much for your time and have a good day.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And nice meeting everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you, Ma. Bye.
And happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day.
Nice meeting you.
Women's Day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
God bless you.